This is Dr. Chris's radio horror program on 91.3 FM, WCUW in Worcester, Massachusetts, with a live recorded interview with local author Laura Dasnoit and her book Forgotten Legends about Norse gods, private investigating, and soul collecting. You do a lot of soul collecting in your day-to-day life?
I do.
You do?
It's at night.
Okay.
Shenanigans, all that sort. Mm-hmm.
Just going through the streets of Nashville and just still collecting the wicked and the evil.
Yes. The cops haven't caught me yet. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that why Mark looks so tired sometimes coming to game? So tell us a little bit about what the book is about and where it started from.
The book is about, the main character is Iris Borden. She is a private investigator in Atlanta that ends up having dreams of Norse gods. And if her life wasn't bad enough at that point, she is tricked by death into becoming a soul collector. As for where I got the idea, I was probably about 19 when it came to my mind. Don't ask me exactly where that came from. But the Norse mythology side came from my love for the word comics.
Grow up on a bevy of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee stuff?
Actually, no.
Walter Simonson?
Yeah.
Louise Simonson?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Have you met them before?
No. I know.
What the hell? They've been like dozens of conventions in the New England area.
I know, it's actually sad. It
is very sad.
It's very sad. I admit. I recently started reading the Thor comics. I was actually more into the Crow comics originally.
James O'Barr.
Yes.
It's a depressing man to meet.
He was very nice to me. Why is he depressing?
Oh, the two interviews that I have never conducted with him, but I've sat in on. It just after he left, the entire energy in the room was just like, oh. So everything in The Crow is based on actual fact in his life.
Oh.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, he was I don't know if him and his girlfriend would get married on Halloween, but him and his girlfriend were mugged or home invaded, and she was beaten and raped, and then he was put in a coma.
Really?
And when he woke up, he had the inspiration for The Crow.
Wow.
Same kind of like weird I have a dream speech repeated by, James Cameron had a feverish dream, was going to die. And when he woke up, he had the inspiration for Terminator. Because all he saw was death, but death was like a metal skeleton from the future. Right. Based on mankind's overuse of technology at the time in the 80s was becoming bigger and bigger. That terrible vampire-written story, she had a dream of a sparkly vampire.
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that part.
Martin Luther King dreamed of, equality and stuff like that.
Oh.
So it's like the same I have a dream.
It's very interesting because I did not know that.
One's political, one's science fiction, one's bullshit, and one's tragedy.
Mostly tragedy.
James O'Barr's tragedy, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, back to your book. So, and you were a private investigator for how long?
For about 2 years.
Oh, okay. Now, did it work like in the story? Because I'm like up to chapter 8, and there's a lot of things that run kind of like the way I used to work for a private investigator would run. We would meet and come together with our, like the whiteboard and discuss, what cases have what we have enough of or whatever, and our boss would mark it off saying, that's enough. That's more than we need. We don't need to go any further with this, and we'll present it to the, depending on who they're working with, the person who hired us or the district attorney, if it was something that needed to go to court. So did it work the same way with you? Yes, it did.
I did a little bit more of the pretty side of private investigating. There's no trash collection in that book.
Oh, you didn't have to go you had to go dumpster diving?
Yes, I went dumpster diving.
Oh, fantastic.
Usually in people's neighborhoods. Yeah, it was awesome.
And
especially when someone had a puppy and you did not know that they had a puppy. Newspaper filled with a whole bunch of, puppy love.
Wait, what?
Lots of poop.
So again, I'm only up to chapter 8, and so she's been a soul reaver for, is that what you call it, a soul reaver?
Soul weaver, soul collector.
Soul collector for a while,
uh-huh.
And she has these dreams of Norse mythology, and did you do a lot of fact searching based on Norse mythology to get your facts right beyond comic books?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the comic books isn't exactly exactly correct.
Thor has mangy red hair and is a barbarian, womanizing bastard, not golden flowing locks with an ego.
Well, he also believes that he can solve everything with his hammer. And so Loki is able to...
They got that right in the first movie, at least.
Yeah, they did. They did. And Loki is not as much of a dick.
Oh, he's a nicer guy in the original?
He's more of a he's a very handsome individual, but he's more suave, and he's more words than anything else.
Now, do all these Norse gods eventually show up in the book?
Some of them, yes. Not all of them. That would be a lot.
Are they going to be showing up in the like old medieval gear, or is it going to be like more modern day, since it is set in the modern times, and these are all dreams?
Modern.
Okay, that's cool. This is the first thing. Is this the first book you read?
Yes.
Do you have any short stories out there?
No.
No poetry?
Probably somewhere out there. God, I hope it never surfaces. It was during my goth phase. So
we'll find it, and we'll read it on the air the night we play this.
Oh, God.
Maybe we'll bring it to Cam and be like, look what we found. We need to share with the group.
Please don't.
What authors reading growing up did you love to inspire you to become a writer?
Originally, it was Anne Rice, and then more of Dean Koontz as I got older.
I've never been big into Dean Koontz. What was it about Dean Koontz that really touched you? I
could never figure it out. That's what it always... I could never figure out where he was going. I always thought I knew where he was going because I knew that he had a lot of paranormal aspects to his book. Something was off about it, but I was never smart enough to figure it out.
Apparently you and Hollywood have the same problem because they can never make anything of Dean Koontz into a proper film.
I can see that.
Look at Phantoms. Yeah. Everyone's like, Phantoms is the bomb. No, Phantoms was a bomb. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Among several other of his works. And Anne Rice, I've only read her first 4 books, and then after that, I didn't pick up anything again until she came out with until she gave Armand his whole entire own book.
I've read all of the vampire books. I was like 14 when I started reading them, so it was a little bit dramatic reading those books at that young of an age.
Oh, I started reading when I was like 11.
Okay,
my mom was like, I was like, what is this? And my mom was like, oh yeah, you should read this, because my mom was like surrounded by vampire novels and Star Trek. So
my mom was the same way.
That's cool.
Our mom should be friends.
It became this like constant. This constant like influence in my life. I'm not really that into Star Trek. I'm more into Star Wars, but Star Trek had surrounded my more into Star Wars.
No,
more into Star Trek.
Star Trek. Yeah.
Did you know at Aresia they're doing a gender swap Star Trek show?
What?
Yeah.
Really?
It's being put on by the Radio Player Group. The director contacted me today because she's going to come on the weekend before Aresia to promote it, and I said, "Oh, you should have you, the producer, writer or whatever, and at least Kirk and Spock. Kirk and Spock have to come on." And she's like, "Oh, absolutely." And I need a cast list because I write all the content being posted to Aresia's webpage. I'm one of like the 3 or 4 people that are writing that and posting it on Aresia's page. And I found out about this. I was like, "This is great." And then she also told me another cam player of ours, Adria, is playing Spock.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that until today.
Are you gonna wear a red shirt?
I don't own any Star Trek stuff.
Oh, you should wear a red shirt just because.
Just a regular red shirt. Oh, no. I have a regular red shirt. Or to go find a Star Trek red shirt?
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
And then you have to die.
Oh. No, I'm not in it.
Like fake die.
In what regard?
In a red shirt. Because red shirts always die.
Where am I going to die?
I don't know. Here?
I'll wear a red shirt in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And do something really stupid and get killed. Among all the other stupid things I've done at camp.
It's the best place to die.
Yeah. Is this book going to have a sequel, or is this just a one and done? Or what's your next project after this if this is just one and done for this character, Iris?
I actually, if my fan base actually tells me they want a sequel, I'll make a sequel. I am currently writing a young adult book.
Oh, yeah, that you had mentioned that. What's the young adult book about?
It is about a 11-year-old girl, my name is Zoe, who is in a completely different world called Griddle.
What's it called?
Griddle.
What's that from?
Nowhere. It's just
you just made that word up.
I made it up.
You just coughed one day. Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yes, exactly. And so essentially, it's a lot of steampunk, pirates, ninjas, and cowboys mixed into one.
Steampunk, pirates, ninjas, and cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something Neil Gaiman would write.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a children's picture book out about a pumpkin that eats children on Halloween.
Those poor children. He was hungry, though.
But it's saved by death.
Hey.
And then there's a big message about why you shouldn't go trick-or-treating alone.
Well, you shouldn't go trick-or-treating alone.
Well, that's
Who
the whole
goes
thing
trick-or-treating alone?
Oh, people go trick-or-treating. We have kids. I had kids come up to the house I'm living in or whatever. It was like one kid or whatever.
Where were his parents?
I don't know. I had to get to, I just passed out the candy and just didn't ask any questions.
I can't believe that, because when I was a kid...
I mean, they had masks on and stuff like that, so I didn't know how old they were. Maybe they were like 12, And at some point, they can go alone. I mean, I went trick-or-treating when I was 11 or 12 alone. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
I was the same way. All my siblings are younger than me, so they were my excuse to continue trick-or-treating until I was 18, 19.
And then when I had a child, I still put a costume and mask on, just squatted down a lot.
It got me there.
Got trick-or-treating with him. Trick-or-treat!
Right? Candy. Gotta have candy.
Yeah, it's all free. It's all free. It's the one day a year. They just, every red-blooded American just like gives stuff away with no questions asked.
Exactly.
It's quite awesome. We, of course, are big into the film industry here at Radio of Horror, and we always love to ask, what was your favorite science fiction, fantasy, or horror movie growing up, as well as television show?
Favorite or most scary?
One that you always kept watching or whatever.
Hellraiser.
But again, horror, fantasy, and science fiction.
Hellraiser.
Since your book, by the way, kind of encompasses, a lot of different aspects, dealing with like working with death, and you're working, in mystery, and it's got mythology in it as well.
It does, and I believe that growing up, my mom introduced me to like Predator, Aliens, Hellraiser.
Your mom's awesome.
She is.
My mom would never let me watch that. I mean, she had to sit with us, and I convinced her to finally let us watch like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
I watched that too.
It was on TV, so she was like, she thought it was going to be okay, that they would edit a lot of it. They really didn't.
And watching it now, it's kind of like, I was scared of that.
Yeah, I'm not scared of it.
It was the one that freaked me out as a kid.
Actually, I went to H.P. Lovecraft convention, Necronomicon, that's what it was called, in August, and I've never had a nightmare after watching a horror movie until watching with Stuart Gordon there and his wife and his producer. They showed a 35mm cut of Dagon, and I'd never seen it before. And then I went home. I went to my girlfriend's house that night, and I had like the worst nightmare. And I woke up, whatever. I was so excited. I was like, "That movie is awesome! I had an awesome nightmare. I'm terrified, but
what was
this
it
movie
about?
is great." It's about a couple. He just came into some money, finding some lost treasure, and him and his friends are boating, and they have an accident, and him and his fiance swim to shore to a island they see to get help, and there's a bunch of like just people just closing their doors as soon as they get to the island and ignoring them, and they get to this church or whatever, the Church of Dagon, and they find this old man living there, and he tells them that the once upon a time the fishing village was drying up and there was no food or whatever, and then all of a sudden all these weird artifacts showed up or whatever, and they believed that this was a sign they needed to stop worshiping Christ and worship Dagon. And next thing you know, it started transforming all of the people into like fish, like tentacle looking. They looked like the cast of like the Pirates of the Caribbean, the second film with Davy Jones with the tentacle Cthulhu like thing or whatever, and he meets this like exotic princess or whatever who he's been dreaming about off and on ever since he found this lost treasure. And she's convinced that his fiance is dead, and so in the middle of making out, he pulls the sheet away, and she's got like tentacle legs instead of like a fish fins. Upper half, gorgeous looking naked mermaid woman. Bottom half, and then of course it's this huge like ending or whatever. And there is just some graphically horrible stuff that happens or whatever when he finds out his fiance is still alive. And the princess is trying to convince him that he is like one of them, and he's been lost for years and he can't believe it. And it's just like, again, all the townspeople are all like, again, half mutated like fish people. And there's only one friend, again, this is the one fisherman who's been living there since he was a child, that's been avoiding them all this time because he still believes in Christ, but not Dagon. And Dagon is basically one of the forgotten, one of the original forgotten. He's like Cthulhu.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
So he hangs out with Cthulhu.
Oh, yeah. They just chill.
Yeah.
Have coffee together.
Yeah. And it's got one hell of an ending. You're just like, oh my god, that's how this movie ends.
I
Oh.
have to look it up.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's on DVD. You can get it on it. It is just insane. It's based on the short story by H.P. Lovecraft. It's a combination of two stories Lovecraft wrote, Dagon and something like the Forgotten something or another, that Stuart Gordon combined into both of them. And Stuart Gordon also did The Reanimator and From Beyond and other Lovecraft stories.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
Yes, it
sounds creepy.
He's seen it. yeah, you got to see it. Trust me, you'll do not eat fish while watching it or calamari.
So noted.
Yeah,
sushi is out.
No, it's just one of the movies that ever gave me complete nightmares.
And Paranormal Activity was the one that freaked me out.
Really, the bedsheet moving scared you?
It was mainly because I couldn't see.
Oh, what was that? It was wind.
It was scary.
Have you ever seen Parody Activity? The short little film they made when it came out. It has like people in sheets walking around while the people are sleeping. The people wake up, they look around, they can't see the people in sheets are just sitting there doing this or whatever. And they come in with a bunch of people in sheets or whatever, and they play the Monster Mash. We do the math. And the guys wake up again, they look around, there's nobody there. And then of course the two main people in sheets, that's like, they're like smoking weed, they're like, going into the refrigerator, opening the refrigerator door, cooking their food, having a barbecue in the bedroom, whatever, screwing each other on the bed in front of the couple.
Oh my god.
And the couple eventually wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, I gotta get some coffee. Oh, we left some coffee made for you downstairs. Thanks. I think it's a collegehumor.com video. All right, so as a big fan of Norse mythology, we're gonna ask you some really tough questions. See if you can answer them correctly.
Right.
Oh, otherwise your book is just gonna be filled with utter crap.
I feel like crap if I can't answer them. Let me pull out my phone just in case.
In Norse mythology compared to, let's say, Marvel Comics, at least you have some basis to think about whether or not it's true or not. Is the character of Odin as truthfully portrayed?
No.
No. In what regards?
In compared to the comics?
Yeah.
Or
sure.
in the movie?
Well, yeah. We'll do the comics.
Odin is more of a seer, actually. It's the reason why he got plucked out his eye, was so that way he can actually see what was going on in the other worlds. Kind of like, almost like Heimdall, but not quite. And then also in the movie, they only had one raven, which is supposed to be two.
They didn't even have him in the first one.
They didn't have him in the first one. They didn't have Mim's head, which is actually kind of surprising. He's also they showed some of the warrior aspects in the movie, and he is a fighter, but it's kind of iffy.
Is there really a tree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Do you put the tree in your book? Does the tree show up?
The tree, no.
Yidril?
But I do mention
Yidril?
the three
Yadril?
sisters that are on the bottom of the tree.
Is that how you pronounce it?
What?
Yidril? Is that the name of the tree? I honestly can't even remember if it's ever mentioned in either Thor film. I know the Red Skull says it in Captain America.
They do show bits of it in the second Thor, but I'm not going to give too many spoilers on that because there's some people who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we've already spoiled the whole movie. Because we were talking about Benicio del Toro looks like the villain from Zoolander.
I was trying to be nice.
What was the other? We actually had them all written down before we came here, and then I forgot it at home because I actually had like the facts based, next to it, whatever, from like Wikipedia. Because I only know basic Norse mythology. I never even knew what Norse mythology was until I picked up a comic book.
That's fair.
So, and there is one comic book guy out there who based a lot of when he puts like Thor and Asgard into his books. Eric Larson's had them in Savage Dragon, and he actually bases them on the, like original lore and everything. Like he draws like Thor, like the way Thor has been painted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like long
sense.
red beard and long red hair, and he's got this ridiculous golden tunic on.
They really don't know if he had red hair or not. They guess that he does.
Well, they assume just based on the area. So, a friend of mine who has been to, he went to Greenland. Yeah. It's Greenland or Iceland?
Iceland. Because Iceland's actually green and Greenland's actually ice.
So wherever they still worship like Norse mythology,
I don't know.
They like the whole. He went to these tiny little towns or whatever. Like he got the airport's like in the middle of nowhere, and so it's like a 5-hour drive to the nearest town. And he went to the town or whatever, and there's like this, it's not just like a tourist thing. It's like there's some towns that really still believe in like Norse mythology.
That's cool.
Yeah. So he really took this whole like expedition to kind of get it, really immersed in it. The name of the book is Forgotten Legends, and you can of course pick it up at your website. And also, what was that link you sent me to that other website?
www.eternalpress.com.
Eternalpress.com. I sent them an email saying, "Oh yeah, we have some of your, we'd like to have some of your authors on the show." And some people emailed me from South Africa, New Zealand, somebody from California, somebody from Mexico. So I still gotta sort through all of those. Who does the cover?
Who is on the cover?
Yeah, who is on the cover and
Who? Oh, Donna. She's actually one of the cover artists for Eternal Press.
Oh, that's an art?
Yeah.
It's not a photograph?
Yeah, she designed it. She designed it herself. I told her the gist of what I wanted, and she took it and made it, and it was perfect.
Wow. That looks like photogenic then compared to...
It's actually the skyline of Atlanta in the background.
Ah, okay. Is that where the story takes place?
Yes.
Okay. It was one other thing I wanted to bring up based on your unique and crazy bio. You used to be a professional wrestler.
I did.
For how many years?
About 1.5, 2 years.
Did you have a costume?
Generally black, lots of black leather.
What was your wrestler name?
Jade.
Jade?
Yes. I was a heel.
I don't know what that is.
I was a bad guy.
Oh, okay.
A cheater. Cheated a lot.
Oh, okay.
Chairs, that type of thing.
Is professional wrestling just like the way it is portrayed in The Wrestler?
Yeah. Yes, it is actually. I mean, not everybody ends up like The Wrestler.
No, well, yeah. I mean, you're not, coked out of your head and...
No. it's basically, you can take that and take... such an asshole. You can take that...
What you do in your own time?
No, I don't do coke. Thank you very much. No, but you can take The Wrestler and you can.
I would hope not. You'd be a lot more livid during game.
Yeah, there's that.
I think you could maintain that, stick up your ass disposition for 4 hours.
Actually, it's very hard sometimes to portray such a bitch.
Yeah, compared to like this, and this is like the first, other than, I like talk to Mark once in a while through email and stuff like that, but other than, 5 minutes of hello and goodbye, it's usually, again, your worshipfulness, and then, oh, look, you're a real human being.
I am a real human being. I'm all grown up, all by myself.
But was the wrestling thing before the writer thing?
Yes.
I mean, the private investigator thing?
Yes.
Why did you leave the private investigator thing, by the way?
Why did I leave it?
Yeah.
I am too cocky with a badge.
Oh. Did you get in trouble?
I put myself in very dangerous situations, yes.
Is that why you're... I recently read that you wanted to, get a handgun. So you didn't have a handgun when you...
Mainly it's because I know hand-to-hand combat. I do trained in Krav Maga.
What's that?
It is an Israeli self-defense system. Basically... the Israeli military teaches it to all of their citizens. It's a very quick way to pound someone to the ground and then run like a freaking gazelle.
Have you is anything in the book based on something you actually worked on in your private investigator career? Are you allowed to even write about any of that? And go, oh, this was a case I did, but I'm gonna have to change the names and to protect the innocent, cops.
No.
Would you be allowed to?
Yeah, I could probably just change names and change because a lot of the private investigating stuff is cheaters. I mean, that's
so you didn't have one case in particular that were wow, this would make a great story one day.
Probably, yes. Actually, at the time I almost I ended up in a house where I had to serve papers, and they called me back to let me know that the gentleman actually who I was trying to serve papers to pulled a gun on the person that was tried to serve him last week. Good times, right?
Yeah. I think the worst experience I had was the stakeouts were not fun. Sitting there for hours, sitting in a car.
That I do make references to how bored out of your skull you can get on a stakeout.
Yeah, I mean, if I had somebody with me, I could do other things, and we could like every hour switch it off. I'd be on my Game Boy or something.
Right.
But if I'm not, then I literally the only thing I can have running is like the car, and I have to sit there and just stare at the house.
Well, I made up songs, lots of mouth bubbles, drawing.
You have a lot of time to think of yourself. I've worked security jobs, and I'm just like, I've done. I'm just like watching stuff sometimes, and I'm just like trying to think of like I've run out of battery power on all my little devices. I can't keep it running out of my cars. I'll run my battery on my car, and the things I am trying to think of without going completely insane.
Yes. And
I'm like, this is what prison would be like.
Correct. You can't think of anything anymore, so you're just brain fried.
Yeah. The again, the book is excellent, and wish you all the excellent luck. Now, who started the whole this whole? I mean, has this been going on for since they created the game? This interconnected web of stuff? Because I had a friend who was in Georgia, and she did the not Cam. She did Requiem down in Georgia. It was last weekend.
So as I understand it, I wasn't part of the club when it was first founded, but back in the very early 90s, they started the club out in Seattle. And it was just, that was when vampires were really starting to take off again. Anne Rice had put out a bunch of her books, and there were some movies that were coming out, and the goth scene was in full swing, and kind of latched on to the game itself, Vampire the Masquerade, which a lot of people don't know was what most people consider the second edition is actually the third edition. The very first edition was a horrible piece of crap. I am surprised they lived long enough, that it survived long enough as an intellectual property to get to the next editions.
It was Star Trek: The Motion Picture. There was enough there.
Yeah. But they came out with a very simple set of LARP rules. It's like about 120 page book, and it was so half-assed done. There were some disciplines that had 3 powers, some had 5. There was no game design to it whatsoever. It was just, here's some rules, and play the game. And so a group of people in Seattle started playing, and they got a ton of people to join up with them. And some of their friends, just through the goth scene, said, well, we want to do one too, and it just kind of cropped up overnight. They turned into this multi-state organization, and then it became a multinational organization, and they made an NPO and had the club going for years and years until there was some issues with the intellectual property, and White Wolf took over the original Camarilla, which is why the club now is called the Mind's Eye Society. The Camarilla name is a overarching fan organization now. It's multiple. Anyone who has a license to do the LARP, which I'm told is very easy to get and stupid cheap, is part of the Camarilla. So Mind's Eye Society, One World by Night, etc. And really, it's. I think it was just because people liked having that local community so much. The idea of opening it up and having multiple local communities where, hey, I gotta, go off to college. Is there a chapter there? Oh, there is. And, gave people a place to automatically find, other people with like interests.
So is there, what we do is a live action role playing game, and so there's Cam and there's Requiem. And those are 2 LARPs. Does that mean there are also 2 registered tabletop versions going on as well?
Well, we don't actually have a tabletop chronicle in the club.
Okay.
It's just the LARPs. They tried doing a registered tabletop chronicle, and it just didn't take off.
So the LARP goes on everywhere, not the
Everywhere.
tabletop. Okay, so
Yep.
So I was under the impression that there was also tabletops going on as well.
No,
So it's not exactly like Dungeons and Dragons. It really is using your imagination to
yeah.
act and not just sit there going, my Nosferatu takes 12 points of damage from your Ventru.
Well, and that was one of the things that really helped. It really helped Vampire the Masquerade become the phenomenon it was in the 90s, was that because of the LARP aspect, you didn't just have gamers playing. You know, you had the goths who loved the material and being able to dress the way they like to dress and associate with other people, and, you know, it was great. But then you also got the drama people involved, because it was that live action role play where, you know, you just had to come up with it off the top of your head and roll with it. When I first started LARPing was back in '94. I was going to Northeastern, and there was a
Oh, you don't look that old.
well, I'll tell you, I was in grad school, so I'm even older than you just thought I was.
I was just entering junior high.
But we had a tabletop group, and some of our friends were playing in the CAM at the time. There was the Boston chapter of the CAM, and they were having problems getting a site and getting people, getting new blood into the club. And a couple of my friends at the time said, "Hey, why don't we run a game for you?"
Uh-huh.
And that way, instead of, the 3 or 4 people who, should be out there playing and getting people into the system, instead of them running the game, they can actually be playing and bringing people into your community. And one of them was like, "Hey, Mark, can you help us out? Can you play this NPC?" And it was the first time I ever tried it, and I had such a blast that I just started running with them from that on. And we ran that Chronicle for about 2.5 years.
For non-gaming people, NPC is non-playable character. In parentheses.
Yes. We ran that for about 2.5 years, and our
Here
average,
in the Boston area.
yeah, at Northeastern.
Okay.
Northeastern actually gave us an entire classroom building.
Okay.
That was just us for the entire day. So, once a month we do 10 hours straight of LARP with about 150 to 160 people.
Now, just to clarify for people, so the Boston area, does that encompass all of Massachusetts?
Yeah.
There's no other game going on, right?
Right. The normal rule of thumb in the Mind's Eye Society is 30 miles from the central city. So
Okay.
it would normally be 30 miles outside of Boston would be the domain boundaries.
So, like Worcester, that includes Worcester County.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then up until you hit
And up
New
to-
Hampshire has their own.
New Hampshire used to have their own.
Oh.
Southern New Hampshire is actually part of our group.
Okay.
What had happened is there had been a Boston group and a New Hampshire group, and the Boston group had a ton of people who wanted to be officers, and the New Hampshire group had a ton of people who wanted to play, but nobody wanted to be an officer. So we ended up smushing the two together into one larger domain, and from then on we've been the Boston domain.
And then what about like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, Maine? Do they have groups?
Yes, there is a group in Bangor, Maine. There's a group in Portland, Maine. There's Rutland, Vermont, Albany, New York. There used to be one out in Springfield, but they kind of fell by the wayside. There is a group in Hartford, Connecticut, and then a group in Providence, Rhode Island.
And there's a new group, Buffalo.
Oh, and there's a new group all the way out in Buffalo.
Oh. And there's a for anyone goes to as we mentioned several times on the show, Aresia. There's a great way to get if you're new and trying to get involved. Great way to do it will be at Aresia 2014, which will be Martin Luther King Day weekend. Don't know the exact dates, but that's usually that was last year. This year. How I got involved in the group, and a great way for if you've been trying to find a group and you know of Aresia, come Saturday, because first of all, Saturday is the best day to go to is Aresia. Because all my panels at Aresia are on Saturday. But Saturday night, before you go off and get, mad wasted at a party, which is awesome, because Paprika has the best freaking parties, come to, it's Requiem, isn't it?
Actually,
Requiem and Cam combined.
Chord. They're doing the chord, actually.
Oh, it's a chord? Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of vampire, a little bit of werewolf, a little bit of mage, a little bit of
demon, a little bit of mummies.
Yeah, it's
There's a mummy game?
Yeah, there is a mummy game. It just came out.
What?
I'll be
just
playing.
came out.
Mummy.
When did this come out?
Not too long ago.
August. Yeah.
Where's the mummy game played near us?
It's part of the Accord venue. So if you want.
So it's the week after the one we do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. Now, do any of the games interact with each other ever? Does the werewolf game interact with like our Cam game or the week out or anything like that?
So they're used to.
Because remember I had that mummy problem? That would have been really funny to be like, oh.
They used to. Back when I first joined the Cam, it was all one world.
Okay.
So changeling, mage, werewolf, and vampire all happened in the same universe. So there was the possibility of that kind of crossover. What they found was that's really always bad for vampires because in all kinds of games there's the law of exponential cheese. Mm-hmm. That as books come out they get cheesier and cheesier, more and more powerful. Mm-hmm. So vampire being the first game was the base level, and every game after that got more and more powerful. So you'd have, a mage that would be able to look at a vampire and just be like, "You're a lawn chair," and you were a lawn chair. There was nothing you could do about it.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, and it wasn't. So what they decided to do.
Wait, how do you prevent that from happening at Arisia?
Well, the way it works in the New World of Darkness system, the power levels are scaled down quite a bit more. And the resistances are scaled up. So a vampire will be able to resist a mage just as well as any other mage could.
Now, mage, would that basically cover any of the... Because I don't play mage. Does that cover any of the... I'm assuming like witches and warlocks and stuff like that? Okay, so, all right.
Yeah, the way they...
Witches are big right now.
Yeah, the way they kind of did it is they set it up so you have... a more shamanistic group and a more hermetic group, and they kind of divided it up into archetypes.
Okay.
Which is what they did in the new Vampire as well. You have your vampires that are pretty, and you have your vampires that are like the movie Nosferatu, and they try to hit archetypes and vampire myths with what they do.
Do you think the game changes based on whatever the rest of the culture of the supernatural is doing? Let's say someone comes up with this new thing with vampires, and not them sparkling, but just something really new and unique. Do you think White Wolf goes, wow, that's a really unique concept that we need to now come up with Volume 5 and incorporate something like that in there?
I think to an extent there is, because in the original. The original Masquerade was very much influenced by Anne Rice, movies like Near Dark. I mean, like if you ever saw Near Dark, the Bruja,
Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, the Bruja come directly from Near Dark. I mean, that's a group of Bruja running around kicking the crap out of people.
Yeah, and a lot of the vampires in Anne Rice's are Tordor and Ventru.
Yeah. So they were
Malkavian.
They were definitely influenced by the media of the day, and when they got
and Nosferatu, the movie,
when they redid the game to become Requiem, they were more influenced by some of the TV stuff, like True Blood and things like that. Actually had pretty big influences on the as the material developed. But
Being Human's going to do that soon too. They're going to be coming up with. They already announced that they're going to be coming. The what happened to the vampires on that show? They're going to be clans in different styles of vampires.
Yeah.
So they're all pretty much wiped out and now being reborn or whatever. And they've created kind of like a Nosferatu race because they're all tainted with the cure. Basically, now they're turning vampires into Nosferatu. So if you're not going to come back looking all hot and pretty like Hayden. You're going to come back looking like, your hair's going to fall out, your teeth are going to fall out, and you're going to be this monster of a little thing.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He tries to cure the kid living in the bubble, and that's what happened to him. Whatever.
But it's also backlash against against the sparkly vampires and all the pretty vampires. I mean, if you look on TV, with Vampire Diaries and the originals, like we've glutted the market with pretty vampires. So It's time to go back towards the horror, aspect of it.
What they originally were, like in
30 Days of Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And what was Stephen King's book called? Salem's Lot. When I originally watched that, I had just learned about. I'd always been into vampires, but I was really picky about it. The first one I'd ever filmed, my first exposure to what a vampire was, besides Count Chocula, was who I got to meet Larry Kenny at Super Mega Fest, and he was the voice of Count Chocula from the commercials.
Nice.
Dog, this is Count Chocula. Anyway, there was a movie called My Best Friend is a Vampire, and it's about this kid who is played. Did you ever watch House?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the character name? Wallace Wilson.
Oh, Wilson.
Yeah. Wilson. Sean. No, it's not Sean Patrick Flannery. Anyway, so that actor, his first role when he was like his first kind of like gig or whatever, was an HBO made-for-TV movie called My Best Friend's a Vampire, and he is seduced by this gorgeous-looking older vampire chick played by, I don't know her name, but she's Gregory Peck's daughter. I found out on IMDb because I was always been in love with her. I'm like, I gotta find where this woman is and have her on the show. Anyway, and then David Warner plays the vampire hunter in it, and he breaks in the middle of them going at it with each other, and he doesn't understand what the hell's happening or whatever. And then of course this vampire called MODOK shows up, and he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, oh well, the woman you're with was a vampire, you're gonna become one too. And he's like, but it's daylight. He's like, but you're a living vampire. We're living vampires. There are undead vampires and there are living vampires. It's like living vampires don't necessarily need to feed off of human blood. They can drink off of pig's blood. And he just is an all-night butcher. All the while he's trying to, deal with the fact that this vampire hunter is after his friend and not him, because he thinks the vampire hunter thinks his friend is the vampire. His parents think he's coming out of the closet. And he's trying to get a date with the most, coldest girl in school, who's, a sweetheart, but she's, a super big feminist and hates men.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a precursor to a CW show.
Right, it does.
Oh, they play like 3 times in the movie that song "Gotta Wear Shades."
Nice.
Wow.
Anyway, so Salem's Lot, when I saw it afterwards or whatever, and I got really into more like what vampires were besides just a couple of films I ever watched. I was pissed when I read the book afterwards, and I'm like, what? The movie has Nosferatu vampires, and the book they're supposed to be like Markavian or at least Torador, because I'm basing this all, and I'm talking about this with people, and they have no idea what I'm saying. They got Nosferatu, but everything else they're like, no, don't know what you mean. I'm like, oh, here, read this.
That's fair.
Yeah. Did you guys ever watch the TV series?
Yes, Kindred the Embarrassment. Yep.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It just came out on DVD. You can buy it on Amazon again. You can buy it on Amazon. You get all the episodes, and it comes.
And the 2 that they didn't put on the air.
Yes, and you also get like a copy of the Book of Nod and the decree that all the clans have to sign that you're not going to F each other over because the prince tells you what to do. You better follow it. And it's like $30, and I ordered it. Okay, I hope it comes in time for a game. Bring it with me. Look, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean that was.
It's like everything that's on TV now, and everyone said it was terrible then. Yeah. That show would totally work on TV today.
It would. Well, and they'd be able to have a little bit more budget too.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really hurt the show is that the 2 episodes that were the best were the ones that they didn't air because they thought that they were being too politically incorrect. Because
yes,
the Malkavian episode and groups were up in arms. Oh my God, you're showing people with mental illness.
They didn't have it as part of the Prince's royal table.
Yeah. And then the Assamite episode where
people an Assamite episode?
Yeah. And
can't wait till this
they're
comes
like,
in.
oh, you can't do that. You're going to piss off all the Muslims and everything. It's like, well, the assassin is not a Muslim, and she kicks ass.
I mean, we were really more concerned about that in the 90s than we were today.
Yeah, it was. It was during that rough spot in the 90s when.
Oh, it must have been right after the original World Trade Center bombing.
But yeah, I mean, like it was one of those shows that there were moments that definitely were awesome though. When the Bruja finally gets taken out by the entirety of the Nosferatu clan. I mean, that was just a classic scene that was framed perfectly. But overall,
the Romeo and Juliet romance between the Bruja and the Gangrel were so tongue in cheek.
That needed to be set on fire, and everybody being able to turn into wolves, and their
eyes would flash like they were like the Incredible. I'm like, are they gonna turn into the Incredible Hulk?
But I mean, I'm surprised that they haven't tried to go back to that well. I think they probably aren't.
They need to put it on adult themed channel like HBO or Showtime. Once True Blood ends, maybe the HBO will be like, you know what, we need another vampire show. We're ending True Blood because we're not going to do 15 seasons of True Blood.
Well, right now they're moving away from the horror and they're moving into everybody's doing comic book stuff.
Maybe they'll get Powers made.
They're working on Powers. They're working on.
Maybe they'll go back to the Preacher thing. They got canceled because of the writer's strike.
AMC picked it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they going to go back to the original idea of every issue is going to be an episode?
I don't know, but it's actually Seth Rogen is the guy that's pushing. Like he's putting up a bunch of his money to act as producer.
The comedian, the comedy guy.
Yeah, he's acting as producer.
As long as he's not playing Jesse like he played.
Well, well, I don't think he's gonna act. I don't think he's gonna act.
Actually, he could play Cassidy. I wouldn't care if Cassidy was like short, overweight, chubby guy, because of how arrogant Cassidy is, Seth Rogen would play that.
She hasn't read that one yet.
I haven't.
Cassidy's like introduced in the second issue.
she hasn't read Preacher yet.
Oh, at all?
Yeah. No.
Oh,
yeah, I got to get her to read Transmet.
Oh my god! You could just buy the. I mean, it was such a short run. You could buy it in all the one omnibus they put out.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it at the house.
Oh, you got it? Yeah, I have all. I was at a yard sale and somebody had all the individual issues, and I got them for nothing. And people are like, "Oh my god, you got those cheap?" Because the first couple issues are.
Well, I was lucky. A couple months back, I picked up the entire Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman Miracle Man run, and they just announced they're reprinting it, so all those issues are double what I paid for.
And not only are they reprinting it, he's going to become a main character in the Marvel Universe.
Yep.
I got into an argument with Comic-Con. What convention I go to? Super Mega Fest yesterday. Who was trying to tell me that, like, at the end of the Cancer Thanos storyline a few years ago, and at the end of Age of Ultron, Miracle Man showed up, and I was like,
nope.
No. Angela showed up, and then a female Space Knight showed up that made everyone thought they were bringing Rom back. And he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, Miracle Man did not show up. The rumor is that that Angela is actually in league with Miracle Man because Neil Gaiman owns both of them, and they wouldn't put it past the fact that Neil Gaiman likes to play with Marvel a lot better than anyone else, even though he's also writing for DC."
Well, and
Sandman Requiem.
I think Neil Gaiman just doesn't have a ton of interest in comics anymore. I mean, he's a pretty successful.
Well, he's writing Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Yeah. No, he co-scripted a couple of episodes.
Oh.
He's not. The only comic he's writing right now is the Sandman Overture.
Oh, it's Overture. Okay.
Yeah, he went back to that. He had one more story he wanted to tell.
Did you ever hear? Now, this is some really weird comic book stuff, and this goes back to Sandman also came from the whole goth '90s culture. The Crow, as we talked about earlier, came from the whole goth '90s.
That's correct.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what we know to now to be, the goth culture originated from the 1990s.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like punk was born in like the 70s. Goth was born in the 90s.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it was more influenced by popular culture than just like, like people just wanted to be, like, oh, my life sucks. I need to wear black today. Go to a poetry reading.
Because, I hung out with a lot of the Boston goth crowd when I was in grad school, and
we'll have to find pictures of you.
No, it was never about that, ever.
Like, that's just something I think, the modern media is like, oh, they staple their hands to their foreheads.
Ow.
But they were never, it was never about, oh, woe is me. It was more just...
Marilyn Manson came from the 90s. I mean, it's not a great example. And
yeah.
I know some people are like, he's the king of the goths. I'm like, no, he's the king of the douchebags. God, what was I gonna say? Okay, so weird Sandman trivia thing. This was printed in an issue of like Wizard magazine. Remember Wizard magazine?
Yep.
Which was like your main source of comic book news, and then they just
Until
couldn't
the
keep
internet.
up with the internet. Yeah. They posted this article about Wonder Woman issue 300, the final issue before the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Her and Steve Trevor have a baby, and the baby's name is the same name as Morpheus' successor.
Which is funny because in
JLA, he shows up, and him and Wonder Woman have like a moment.
But the funny thing is in Sandman, he's actually Lita Hall's child. She was Fury on Earth 2, where the Justice Society Earth.
Yeah.
She was the daughter of Wonder Woman of that planet and married the son of Hawkman on that planet. They had a kid, and that's the kid who got taken by Dream and became Daniel, the next Dream.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of funny that they try to change that and make it Wonder Woman.
Well, that was published. What you're talking about was published many, many, many years later. But again, everything wiped out of continuity due to Crisis, or they could have just retconned it into that storyline.
Yep.
Retcon. It's what's good for you. They have a big poster up in my room of a model. She's supposed to be Mary Jane lying in a bathtub or whatever, and there's this red devilish hand like putting shampoo down or whatever next to it. It says retcon. It's what you need in the morning. Just in the bottom right hand corner, it says one more day, the Spider-Man retcon storyline,
which was horrible.
It's honestly it's no worse or better than what's going on right now with Octospidey.
I refuse to acknowledge it.
But
I just read the.
As I've been saying every week since I read it in previews, and I saw the issue where he Dr. Spidey is knocked unconscious or whatever, the walls in his head or whatever seen shattering by a man in shadow or whatever, and then this person it pulls himself out of the rubble and walks away. And Marvel said, "Yes, did you know something amazing happened in that issue? We'll get back to that eventually." And then of course they already announced Amazing Spider-Man 701 and 702. The Return of Peter Parker, Part 1 and 2.
Yay.
Yes.
Oh, I know one thing I was going to bring up when you guys were talking earlier.
I knew you were a big, super nerdy comic book fan. You called my Peter Quill thing, and you were like, "You can't use that name for your character."
Who's going to use comic character's name for it?
Oh, no.
So when I work at the, I'm a public relations manager of a movie theater, and people ask who I am, I use that. Because I'm kind of like off the books that I work for my boss and not really a company or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Peter Quill." And they're like, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you, Peter." I'm like, "I can't use this in August when that movie comes out."
As horrible as the Benicio del Toro
By the way, you guys
part of
super hot because I can open the door.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
As horrible as the Benicio del Toro scene at the end of Thor 2 was, did you spot the other Easter egg that was within that scene? Did you spot the Adam Warlock cocoon that was sitting in
No, and I didn't notice the Infinity Gauntlet until I heard about it. I bought the Blu-ray, still didn't look for it until someone finally posted the scene online where they're running down the halls, and there's the gauntlet with one gem in it, and all the other gems are missing. So I'm assuming that's the Tesseract gem. Stone. They're calling them stones.
Probably because it's the center one. That's the reality gem, which is the one that would be the hardest for them to do in a movie.
Okay.
I think they said
the Tesseract is the mind.
Is mind, and the newest one, the red one, is body.
Not ether.
Yeah, Aether.
Aether
is the body.
Okay, yeah, and that's setting up for. I mean, they've already pretty much. I mean, Marvel did confirm saying that Thanos is not going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
He is coming, which you can only assume that he's coming in Avengers 3.
Yeah, and that gives them plenty. That gives them 4 years.
Tons of time
at least to set up the other.
I'm just so happy everyone's contracted to do like 3 films. The main characters, Iron Man, Thor, Cap, and even Tony Stark, even Robert Downey Jr. is coming back for Iron Man, Avengers 3.
And
not another Iron Man movie, but he did say I have signed on now for Avengers 3 in 2017.
They're doing
We're gonna be
Doctor
old.
Strange movie. So I expect that's where the Soul Gem drops. That whatever the MacGuffin is in that movie, that's going to turn into the Soul Gem. and they'll probably do the Space Gem will be part of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Who should play Doctor Strange? Speculating doesn't even mean anything. You're going to throw somebody out there that we just don't even expect. Especially after, like, when they announced that Chris Evans was going to be Captain America, and everyone was like, no, that's going to be stupid.
Yeah,
and
they turned out to be awesome.
And then he was like...
And his cameo was hysterical.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It's really tight. I'm an arrogant, patriotic son of a... I
don't know who I'd get for...
Who should play
Doctor
Wong,
Strange.
the Ancient One?
Well,
Who should the villains be? Mordu, probably. Maybe Dormammu.
I wouldn't start with Dormammu. I would probably start with someone a little bit less...
Mordu.
Yeah, someone less powerful.
Maybe have
But less
Dormammu
of
be
it.
in the background, like, you know, like at the end of the movie, like Dormammu's big fiery head there.
Yeah.
You know, like at the, you know, did you ever see the Doctor Strange movie from the 1970s?
It was horrible. It was horrible.
That was all we had though until we got
porn star mustache going.
That was all we had though until Blade. I mean,
Yeah.
till Blade, we didn't have anything. We had that.
We had David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
David
Yeah, Nick
Hasselhoff
Fury.
is Nick Fury.
Yeah. Dum Dum Duncan, played by I'm probably looking at my IMDb, but I'm too lazy. God, I can't remember the name, but he was Optimus Primal on Beast Wars and Beast Machines.
Oh,
And he's Optimus Prime in
yes. I know who you're
Transformers
talking-
Armada, Energon, and Cybertron.
What's that?
He's done a lot of voice acting. He was also on Dark Angel. He's been in a lot of the Pixar movies too, but he was Dum Dum Duncan. Yeah, but that Doctor Strange movie was all we had. When I was a kid, I saw that epic final battle for 2 minutes between Doctor Strange and Morgan Le Fay. I was like, yeah, this is like the comics. And then he puts on that god awful costume. It's like purple and white.
I mean, you've got 4 Marvel properties coming to Netflix. They announced that they're developing, because they got the rights to Daredevil back.
Yep.
Luke Cage, Power Man,
And Jessica.
Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones.
Which they will probably just call Jessica Jones because Alias is already, been
Alias
used.
is already taken, and Jewel, which was her superhero name for
Is
the
dumb.
10-minute, is dumb. So, but
do you think they'll get into the whole Purple Man
yes,
mind
because it's
rape
Netflix.
storyline?
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's Netflix.
And do you think her and
they
Luke
have
Cage will hook up?
They have 13 episodes. So,
Do you think her and Cage will hook up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that they're doing the 4 seasons, one season for each
Simultaneously.
of them, simultaneous. And then there's a mini series at the end.
The
which is
Defenders.
The Defenders.
The Street Defenders, really, because you look at that cast of characters, you're like, none of those people have actually been on the Defenders.
Yeah.
Then why do they just call it Heroes for Hire?
I'm hoping that they do the Matt Fraction Iron Fist, where it's more wuxia and less, 70s kung fu exploitation.
Yeah, and I'm like, geez, who would look great in a big black afro to play Misty Knight? Because they still draw her that way today.
That's true.
And they were talking about on Bob Chipman's escapist video thing that like because he was explaining each one of them, like everyone knows who Daredevil is, and he's gonna hopefully fight the Hand, and he's gonna have the Kingpin, and that's it. Don't do Elektra until maybe season 2. Don't rush too much into it, but definitely have the Hand because you need to segue into ding Iron Fist, and they explained who Iron Fist was, and at the time when he was created was because of the whole kung fu genre of the 70s being so popular, and he was the only character other than Shang-Chi to kind of last. And even Shang-Chi really doesn't hold a candle to Danny Rand, just in terms of popularity. And again, they gave him a really controversial relationship with a black woman who was a private investigator with a bionic arm. She lost one of her arms in, I think they said like Vietnam or something like that. A war. She lost her arm in a war, and she has a bionic arm, kind of like Bucky does. And again, it was very controversial. He was a rich white man with a street level private investigative black woman.
Oh.
Now today, that's like whatever.
Yeah,
nobody cares.
Whatever.
But I just hope they keep that intact or whatever, just because she's important to the character. And then of course we have Luke Cage connected to Jessica. They have a baby together. The first issue of Alias was very XXX rated between the two of them.
Oh yeah.
It's just like
uncomfortable.
It's shot after shot of Jessica's face, and panel after panel, and you can see Luke behind her. So at Netflix, you can do whatever you want on Netflix. Look at shows like House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, and
CW has decided that it's going to be the DC home because they've got Our Man coming.
They have Our Man?
Yep.
Oh my God.
They've got Flash.
Jeez.
So they're going to have Arrow, Flash, and Our Man.
I knew about Flash, yeah. And they already announced that Flash is not going to be premiering on Arrow first. But it doesn't mean there won't be a crossover.
He's not going to be in his costume on Arrow.
They said he wasn't going to show up on Arrow.
He's on the next season. He's on the next episode, rather. December 4th.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they just showed the preview for it on the last episode.
At Super Mega Fest yesterday was Slade.
Nice.
He was also Azog, the white orc leader in The Hobbit 1 and 2, and he's of course Crixus on Spartacus, and he was just like, and so you see me with the paint or whatever, and I can't talk about what's gonna happen. I shout Deathstroke. He's like, nobody even allowed. If this is being recorded, we just strike that from the record because the CW wants to like come after and sue me.
Well, yeah, because they've already set up that he's going to get injected by the Miracle.
Yeah, and he's going to go bad eventually and stuff like that.
Which also is the name of the drug that gives Our Man his powers.
Oh, that's cool.
Set that up, that he'll have his powers. They've tied it in really nicely, and I think Arrow is such a well done show as far as like Green Arrow, who is one of the crappiest heroes on the face of the planet.
He's really a stupid character.
I thought Aquaman was the crappiest.
Aquaman is the crappiest, but Green Arrow is.
I don't know. His book
right
sells,
next to him in line.
His book sells very well.
Yeah.
And because of Entourage, they try to give him so much popularity. And the Justice League cartoon series made him like, we're not going to do Aquaman crappy. We're going to make Aquaman a badass, environmentalist.
The new comic has been pretty good, but I mean, Jeff Johns kind of excels at making crappy heroes
character.
and villains cool.
That's like Brian Michael Bendis. He pulled Luke Cage out of nowhere and has made him this like prominently really popular, Avenger, Thunderbolt, and so on and so forth. Yep. We appreciate you guys coming down to the Radio Horror Studios and talking about your book, which is Forgotten Legends.
Yes.
And Cam, and then going off into the geekiest realm possible, which me and my co-host Pamela Isley do eventually at some point in the night. You can get your book at
www.eternalpress.com.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Safe journey back to New Hampshire.